we are on the third fragment, the voice of the silence. This is called the seven portals. Let's get started. Upadhyaya, one over here in the glossary, is a spiritual teacher, also a preceptor or a guru. And it says they're chosen amongst the nailer, or the saintly men, right? And I think it's relatively similar to lamas. So Upadhyaya, the choice is made, I thirst for wisdom. Now hast thou rent the veil before the secret path and taught the greater jnana. Thy servant here is ready for thy guidance. Let's see what this jnana over here, vehicle, thus Mahayana, is the great vehicle, and Hinayana, the lesser vehicle, the names for the two schools of religious and philosophical learning in Northern Buddhism. Okay, so obviously I don't know how to say all these words, but we will continue on because that's what we have to do. 'Tis well Shravaka, which and 3 is a listener or student who attends to the religious instructions from the root shrew when from theory they go into practice or performance of asceticism. They become shramanas, exercisers, from shrama or action, and as Hardy shows, the two appellations answer to the words avo, I don't know, and something else of the Greeks. Okay, good. 'Tis well, Shravaka, prepare thyself, for thou wilt have to travel on alone. The teacher can but point the way. The path is one for all. The means to reach the goal must vary with the pilgrims. Which will you choose, O thou of dauntless heart? The Samtan of I doctrine, fourfold jnana, or thread the way through paramitas, 6 in number, noble gates of virtue leading to bodhi and to prajna, 7th step of wisdom. Now, this prajna paramitas, I understand that is well known in Zen Buddhism. So let's see, the Samtan, Tibetan, the same as the Sanskrit dhyana, or the state of meditation of which there are 4 degrees, okay? And then we've got, we're going to thread the way through paramitas, which is the 6 transcendental virtues. For the priests, there are 10. The rugged, all right, and then we'll continue. The rugged path of fourfold dhyana winds on uphill. Thrice great is he who climbs the lofty top. The paramita heights are crossed by a still steeper path. Thou hast to fight thy way through portal 7, 7 strongholds held by cruel, crafty powers, passions incarnate. Be of good cheer, disciple. Bear in mind the golden rule. Once thou hast passed the gate, Surapati, Shrotopati, he who the stream hath entered, once thy foot hath pressed the bed of the nirvanic stream in this or any future life, thou hast but 7 other births before thee, O thou of adamant will. And this is well known. This Shrotopati is one who entered the stream. That is the first stage of Buddhist enlightenment, and is also known inside Theosophical circles, or I'll say Theosophical circles, as the second initiation into baptism in Jordan. All right, so he entered the stream. let's see here, make sure. Let me just read this full of the Shrodapati. He who has entered the stream that leads to the Nirvanic ocean. This name indicates the first path. The name of the second is the path of Sakradagaman. He who will receive birth only once more. The third is called Anagaman. He who will be reincarnated no more, unless he so desires in order to help mankind. The fourth path is known as that of Arhat. This is the highest, and Arhat sees nirvana during his life. For him, it is no post-mortem state, but samadhi, during which he experiences all nirvanic bliss. So that is, and this can be studied. These stages of Buddhist enlightenment are available on YouTube. And it is a good, interesting study. So, look on, what seest thou before thine eyes, O aspirant to godlike wisdom? The cloak of darkness is upon the deep of matter. Within its folds I struggle, beneath my gaze it deepens. Lord, it is dispelled beneath the waving of thy hand. A shadow moveth, creeping like the stretching serpent coils. It grows, swells out, and disappears in darkness. It is the shadow of thyself outside the path, cast on the darkness of thy sins. Yea, Lord, I see the path, its foot in mire, its summit lost in glorious light nirvanic. And now I see the ever-narrowing portals on the hard and thorny way to Yana. And we'll just go down here. There's a saint or an adept. It's also not, considered true knowledge. So, thou seest well, Lanu, these portals lead the aspirant across the waters on to the other shore. Each portal hath a golden key that open its gates. And these keys are, and we'll get there in a second, let's talk to the, these portals lead to the aspirant across the waters onto the other shore. And this is arrival at the shore is with the Northern Buddhists synonymous with reaching nirvana through the exercise of the 6 and the 10 paramitas virtues. Each portal hath a golden key that open its gate, and these keys are Dhyana, the key of charity and love immortal. Sila, the key of harmony in word and act, a key that counterbalances the cause and the effect and leaves no further room for karmic action. And Shanti, patience sweet that naught can ruffle. Viraj, indifference to pleasure and to pain, and illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. Virya, the dauntless energy that fights its way to the supernal truth out of the mire of lies terrestrial. Dhyana, whose golden gate once open leads to Nalar, which is a saint or an adept, toward the realm of Sat, eternal in its ceaseless contemplation. 7, we have Prajna, the key to which makes of a man a god, creating him a bodhisattva, son of the Dhyanis. Such to the portals are the golden keys. Before thou canst approach the last, O weaver of thy freedom, thou hast to master these paramitas of perfection, the virtues transcendental, 6 and 10 in number, along the weary path. For, O disciple, before thou wert made fit to meet thy teacher face to face, thy master light to light, what were thou told? Before thou canst approach the foremost gate, thou hast to learn to part thy body from the mind, to dissipate the shadow, and to live in the eternal. For this thou hast to live and breathe in all, as all that thou perceivest breathes in thee, to feel thyself abiding in all things in self. Thou shalt not let thy senses make a playground of thy mind. That's a great command there. Thou shalt not let thy senses make a playground of thy mind. Thou shalt not separate thy being from being and the rest, but merge the ocean in the drop and the drop within the ocean. So shall that be in full accord with all that lives, bear love to men as though they were thy brother, pupils, disciples of one teacher, the sons of one sweet mother. Of teachers there are many. The master soul is one. The master soul is Alaya, the universal soul, or Atman, each man having a ray of it in him and being supposed to be able to identify himself with and to merge himself into it. Live in that master as its ray in thee. Live in thy fellows as they live in it. And, we study, the treatise on the seven rays. That's what a lot, those books from Alice Bailey are, and we've, we're able to get this education now. So before thou standest on the threshold of the path, before thou crossest the foremost gate, thou hast to merge the two into the one and sacrifice the personal self to self impersonal, and thus destroy the path between the two, the antikarana. So now we'll go over here. The antikarana is the lower manas, the path of communication or communion between the personality and the higher mind, manas, or human soul. At death, it is destroyed as a path or medium of communication, and its remains survive in a form as the kamarupa, the shell. Very interesting. And we've done much studying on the Anakarana in a treatise on white magic, and also treatise on seven rays, or rays and initiations, rather. It has a very deep study of the Antakarana and building the Antakarana. And so does the Maurya Federation, has done a lot of work on that. So thou hast to be prepared to answer Dharma, the stern law, whose voice will ask thee at thy initial step, hast thou complied with all the rules, O thou of lofty hopes? Hast thou attuned thy heart and mind to the great mind and heart of all mankind? For as the sacred river's roaring voice, whereby all nature sounds are echoed back, so must the heart of him who in the stream would enter thrill in response to every sigh and thought of all that lives and breathes. And so let's look at this. All nature sounds are echoed back. The northern Buddhists and all Chinamen, in fact, find in the deep roar of some of the great and sacred rivers the keynote of nature, hence the simile. It is a well-known fact in physical science as well as in occultism that the aggregate sound of nature, such as heard in the roar of the great rivers, the noise produced by the waving tops of trees in large forests, or that of a city heard at a distance, is a definite single tone of quite an appreciable pitch. I might add to that the sound of inside of a seashell, potentially. Right? This is shown by physicists and musicians. Thus, Professor Rice of Chinese music shows that the Chinese recognized the fact thousands of years ago by saying that the waters of the Huanghe rushing by intone the kong, called the great tone in Chinese music, and he shows this tone corresponding with the F, considered by modern physicists to be the actual tonic of nature. Professor Bill Silliman mentions it too in his Principles of Physics, saying that this tone is held to be the middle F of the piano, which may therefore be considered the keynote of nature. Very interesting. Disciples may be likened to the strings of the soul echoing Vyana, mankind, unto its sounding board, the hand that sweeps it to the tuneful breath of the great world soul. The string that fails to answer neath the master's touch in dulcet harmony with all the others breaks, and is cast away. So the collective minds of the Lanu Shravakas, they have to be attuned to the Upadaya's mind, one with the Oversoul, or break away. Thus to the brothers of the shadow, the murderers of their souls, the dread dead Dukpa clan. Let's see what this is. The Bonds, or Dukpas, the sect of the red caps, are regarded as the most versed in sorcery. They inhabit western and Little Tibet and Bhutan. They are all tantrikas. It is quite ridiculous to find Orientalists who have visited the borderlands of Tibet, such as Shagantweet and others, confusing the rites and disgusting practices of these with the religious beliefs of the Eastern Lamas. The yellow caps and their nailers are holy men. The following is an instance. And we'll get to that here in just a second. Hast thou attuned thy being to humanity's great pain, O candidate for light? Thou hast, thou mayest enter, yet before thou settest foot upon the dreary path of sorrow, 'tis well thou shouldst first learn the pitfalls on thy way. Armed with the key of charity, of love, and tender mercy, thou art secure before the gate of Dana, the gate that standeth at the entrance of the path. Behold, O pilgrim, the portal that faces thee is high and wide, seems easy of access. The road that leads therethrough is straight and smooth and green. 'Tis like a sunny glade in the dark forest depths, a spot on earth mirrored from Amitabha's paradise. There, nightingales of hope and birds of radiant plumage sing perched in green bowers, chanting success to fearless pilgrims. They sing of Bodhisattva's virtues 5, the fivefold source of Bodhi power, and the 7 steps in knowledge. Pass on, for thou hast brought the key, thou art secure. In the second gate the way is verdant too, but it is steep and winds uphill, yea, to its rocky top. Gray mists will overhang its rough and stony height, and all be dark beyond. As on he goes, the song of hope soundeth more feeble in the pilgrim's heart. The thrill of doubt is now upon him, his step less steady grows. Beware of this, O candidate, beware of fear that spreadeth like the black and soundless wings of midnight bat, between the moonlight of thy soul and thy great goal that loometh in the distance far away. Fear, O disciple, kills the will and stays all action. If lacking in the sila virtue, the pilgrim trips, and karmic pebbles bruise his feet along the rocky path. Be of sure foot, O candidate. In Kshanti's essence bathe thy soul. Kshanti's essence bathe thy soul. For now thou dost approach the portal of that name, the gate of fortitude and patience. And this Kshanti, patience, Veda Supra, the enumeration of the golden keys. Close not thine eyes, nor lose thy sight of Dorje. Mara's arrows ever smite the man who has not reached Viraja. And Dorje is the Sanskrit Vajra, a weapon or instrument in the hands of some gods, the Tibetan Dragshad, the Devas who protect men, and is regarded as having some occult power of repelling evil influences by purifying the air as ozone in chemistry. It is also the mudra, a gesture and posture used in sitting for meditation. It is, in short, a symbol of power over invisible evil influences, whether as a posture or talisman. The bonds or dukpas, however, having appropriated the symbol, misuse it for purposes of black magic, with the yellow caps, or galupas. It is a symbol of power, as the cross is with Christians, while it is in no way more superstitious. With the dupas, it is like the double triangle reversed in the sign of sorcery. And then we've got here, and this is very deep. I don't know what that symbol is, but it would be interesting to know. But this for 13 Viraja is that feeling of absolute indifference to the objective universe, to pleasure and pain. Disgust does not express its meaning, yet it is akin to it. I think we've experienced that, certainly. All right, so beware of trembling. Beneath the breath of fear, the key of Kshanti, rusty, grows. The rusty key refuseth to unlock. The more thou dost advance, the more thy feet pitfalls will meet. The path that leadeth on is lighted by one fire, the light of daring burning in the heart. The more one dares, the more he shall obtain. The more he fears, the more that light shall pale, and that alone can guide. For as the lingering sunbeam, that on the top of some tall mountain shines, is followed by black night, when out it fades, so is heart light. When out it goes, a dark and threatening shade will fall from thine own heart upon the path and root thy feet in terror to the spot. Beware, disciple, of that lethal shade. No light that shines from spirit can dispel the darkness of nether soul, unless all selfish thought has fled therefrom. And that pilgrim saith, I have renounced this passing frame, I have destroyed the cause, the shadows cast can, as effects, no longer be. Very interesting. For now, the last great fight, the final war between the higher and lower self, hath taken place. Behold, the very battlefield is now engulfed in the great war, and is no more. But once thou hast passed the gate of Kshanti, step the third is taken, thy body is thy slave. For now for the fourth prepare, the portal of temptations, which do ensnare the inner man. Before thou canst near that goal, before thine hand is lifted to upraise the fourth gate's latch, thou must have mustered all the mental changes in thyself and slain the army of the thought sensations that, subtle and insidious, creep unasked within the soul's bright shrine. If thou wouldst not be slain by them, then must thou harmless make thy own creations, the children of thy thoughts, unseen, impalpable, that swarm round humankind, the progeny and heirs to man and his terrestrial spoils. Thou hast to study the voidness of the seeming full, the fullness of the seeming void. O fearless aspirant, look deep within the well of thine own heart and and answer. Knowest thou of self the powers, O thou perceiver of external shadows? So do we know them. If thou dost not, then art thou lost. For on path 4, the lightest breeze of passion or desire will stir the steady light upon the pure white walls of soul. The smallest wave of longing or regret for Maya's gifts elusive, along Antakarana, the path that lies between thy spirit and thyself, the highway of sensations, the rude arousers of Ahankara, a thought as fleeting as lightning flash will make thee thy 3 prizes forfeit, the prizes thou hast won. And this Ahankara, 14, the I, or feeling of one's personality, the I amness. For know that the eternal knows no change, the 8 dire miseries forsake forevermore. If not, to wisdom sure thou canst not come, nor yet to liberation, saith the great Lord, the Tathagata of perfection, he who has followed in the footsteps of his predecessors. And that's one who walks in the steps of his predecessors, or those who came before him, is the true meaning of the name Tathagata. Stern and exacting is the virtue of Raja. If thou its path would master, thou must keep thy mind and thy perceptions far freer than before from killing action. Thou hast to saturate thyself with pure alaya, and that's the one soul, right? Become as one with nature's soul thought. At one with it, thou art invincible. In separation, thou becomest the playground of Samvriti, origin of all the world's delusions. And this 16 here, Samvriti, is that one of the 2 truths which demonstrates the elusive character or emptiness of all things. It is relative truth in this case. The Mahayana schools teach the difference between these 2 truths, Paramartha Satya and truth. This is the bone of contention between the Madhyamikas and the Yogacaras, the former denying and the latter affirming that every object exists owing to a previous cause or by a concatenation. The Madhyamikas are the great nihilists and deniers for whom everything is parakalpa. These words are obviously not, we're not using them. An illusion and an error in the world of thought and the subjective as much as the objective universe. The Yogacaras are the great spiritualists. Samvriti, therefore, as only relative truth is the origin of all illusion. And we talked to Patanjali and others, and we would hear something a little bit different there, I think. All is impermanent in man except the pure, bright essence of alaya. Man is its crystal ray, a beam of light immaculate within, a form of clay material upon the lower surface. That beam is thy life guide and thy true self, the watcher and the silent thinker, the victim of the lower self. Thy soul cannot be hurt but through thy erring body. Control and master both, and thou art safe when crossing to the nearing gate of balance. Be of good cheer, O daring pilgrim. To the other shore, heed not the whisperings of Mara's hosts. Wave off the tempters, those ill-natured sprites, the jealous, I don't know how to say that word, Hamayan, in endless space. And these are the elementals and evil spirits adverse to men and their enemies. Hold firm, thou nearest now the middle portal, the gate of woe with its 10,000 snares. Have mastery over thy thoughts, O striver for perfection. If thou wouldst cross its threshold, have mastery over thy soul, O seeker after truth's undying, if thou wouldst reach thy goal. Thy soul gaze center upon the one pure light, the light that is free from affection, and use thy golden key. The dreary task is done, thy labor well near over. The wide abyss that gaped to swallow thee is almost spanned. Thou hast now crossed the moat that circles round the gate of human passions. Thou hast now conquered Mara and his furious host. Thou hast removed pollution from thine heart and bled it from impure desire. But, O thou glorious combatant, thy task is not yet done. Build, Highlander, the wall that shall hedge the holy isle, the dam that will protect thy mind from pride and satisfaction at thoughts of a great feat achieved. A sense of pride would mar the work, builded strong lest the fierce rush of battling waves that mount and beat its shore from the great world, Maya's ocean, swallow up the pilgrim and the isle, yea, even when the victory is achieved. It doesn't stop. Thine isle is the deer, thy thoughts the hounds that weary pursue his progress to the stream of life. Woe to the deer that is overtaken by the barking fiends before he reached the vale of refuge, Yanamarga, the path of pure knowledge, named. Before thou canst settle in Yanamarga, and let's see what this is the path of Yana, literally, or the path of pure knowledge of Paramartha, or Sanskrit, Shavadana, the self-evident or self-analyzing reflection. And call it thy shrine. Before thou canst settle in Yanamarga and call it thy shrine, thy soul is to become as the ripe mango fruit, as soft and sweet as its bright golden pulp for others' woes, as hard as that fruit stone for thine own throes and sorrows, O conqueror of weal and woe. Make hard thy soul against the snares of self, deserve for it the name of diamond soul. And this presides over the Dhyana Buddhas. For the diamond buried deep within the throbbing heart of earth can never mirror back the earthly lights. So are thy mind and soul plunged in Yanamarga. These must mirror not of Maya's realm elusive. And that's illusion. When thou hast reached that state, the portals that thou hast to conquer on the path fling open wide, their gates to let thee pass, and nature's strongest mights possess no power to stay thy course. Thou wilt be master of the sevenfold path, but not till then, O candidate for trials, passing speech. O candidate for trials, passing speech. Till then, a task far harder still awaits thee. Thou hast to feel thyself all thought, and yet exile all thoughts from out thy soul. Thou hast to reach that fixity of mind in which no breeze, however strong, can waft an earthly thought within. Thus purified, the shrine must of all action sound, or earthly light be void, even as the butterfly overtaken by the frost falls lifeless at the threshold, so must all earthly thoughts fall dead before the fane. Behold it written, Before the gold flame can burn with steady light, the lamp must stand well guarded in a spot free from all wind. And that's from the Bhagavad Gita. Exposed to shifting breeze, the jet will flicker, and the quivering flame cast shades deceptive, dark and ever-changing on the soul's white shrine. And then, O pursuer of truth, thy mind soul will become as a mad elephant that rages in the jungle, mistaking forest trees for living foes, who perishes in the attempts to kill the ever-shifting shadows dancing on the wall of sunlit rocks. Beware lest in the care of self thy soul should lose her foothold on the soil of Deva knowledge. Beware lest in forgetting self, the higher self, thy soul lose over its trembling mind control and forfeit thus the due fruition of its conquest. Beware of change, for change is thy great foe. This change will fight thee off and throw thee back out of the path thou treadest, deep into vicious swamps of doubt. Prepare and be forewarned in time. If thou hast tried and failed, O dauntless fighter, yet lose not courage, fight on, and to the charge return again and yet again. The fearless warrior, his precious lifeblood oozing from his wide and gaping wounds, will still attack the foe, drive him from out of his stronghold, vanquish him before he himself expires. Act then, all you who fail and suffer, act like him, and from the stronghold of your soul chase all your foes away, ambition, anger, hatred, even the shadow of desire, when even you have failed. Remember, thou that fightest for man's liberation, each failure is success, and each sincere attempt wins its reward in time. And this is an allusion to a well-known belief in the East, as in the West too, for the matter of that every additional Buddha or saint is a new soldier in the army of those who work in the liberation or salvation of mankind. In northern Buddhist countries, where the doctrine of the Nirmanakaya is those bodhisattvas who renounce well-earned nirvana, or the Dharmakaya vesture, both of which shut them out forever from the world of men in order to invisibly assist mankind and lead it finally to parinirvana, is taught. Every new bodhisattva or initiated great adept is called the liberator of mankind. The statement made by Schlagenweit in his Buddhism in Tibet to the effect that Propaiku or Nirmanakaya is the body which the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas appear upon earth to teach men, is absurdly inaccurate and explains nothing. Remember thou that fightest for man's liberation, each failure is success, and each sincere attempt wins its reward in time. The holy germs that sprout and grows unseen in the disciple's soul, their stalks wax strong at each new trial. They bend like reeds, but never break, nor can they ever be lost. But when the hour has struck, thy blossom forth, and this being a reference to human passions and sins which are slaughtered during the trials of the novitiate, and serve as well-fertilized soil in which holy germs or seeds of transcendental virtues may germinate. Pre-existing or innate virtues, talents, or gifts are regarded as having been acquired in a previous birth. Genius is without exception a talent or aptitude brought from another birth. Interesting. But if thou camest prepared, then have no fear. Henceforth thy way is clear right through the Varya gate, the fifth one of the seven portals. Thou art now on the way that leadeth to Dhyana Haven, the sixth, the Bodhi portal. The dhyana gate is like an alabaster vase, white and transparent. Within there burns a steady golden fire, the flame of prajna that radiates from Atman. Thou art that vase. Thou hast estranged thyself from objects of the senses, traveled on the path of seeing, on the path of hearing, and standest in the light of knowledge. Thou hast now reached Titiksha state, and this being the fifth state of Raja Yoga, one of the supreme indifference, submission, if necessary, to what is called pleasures and pains for all, but deriving neither pleasure nor pain from such submission, in short, to becoming physically, mentally, and morally indifferent and insensible to either pleasure or pain. O Nailer, thou art safe. No conqueror of sins, once that a Sawani hath crossed the 7 paths, all nature thrills with joyous awe and feels subdued. And this being one who practices the Sawan, the first path of Dhyan, a Shurdapati. The silver star now twinkles out the news to the night blossoms, the streamlet to the pebbles ripples out the tail, dark ocean waves will roar it to the rocks, surf-bound, scent-laden breezes sing it to the vales, and stately pines mysteriously whisper, a master has arisen, a master of the day. And this being day, meaning here a whole manvantara, a period of incalculable duration, and we could say somebody who achieved, right? So he standeth now like a white pillar to the west, upon whose face the rising sun of thought eternal poureth forth its first most glorious waves. His mind, like a becalmed and boundless ocean, spreadeth out in shoreless space. He holdeth life and death in his strong hand. Yea, he is mighty, the living power made free in him, that power which is himself, can raise the tabernacle of illusion high above the gods, above great Brahm and Indra. Now he shall surely reach his great reward. And if we look at this in this sense, then, we're talking about the will, or, we're climbing to the top of the charts that we study, right? We're going up. We're now getting higher. Shall he not use the gifts which it confers for his own rest and bliss, his well-earned weal and glory, he, the subduer of the great delusion? Nay, O thou candidate for nature's hidden lore, if one would follow in the steps of holy Tathagata, those gifts and powers are not for self. Wouldst thou thus dam the waters born on Sumeru, and this is Mount Meru, the sacred mountain of the gods, right? We've heard that many times before. Shall thou divert the stream for thine own sake, or send it back to its prime source along the crests of cycles? If thou wouldst have the stream of hard-earned knowledge, of wisdom heaven-born, remain sweet running waters, thou shouldst not leave it to become a stagnant pond. Now, if of Amitabha, the boundless age, Amitabha, I don't know how to say that thou wouldst become co-worker, then must thou shed the light acquired, like the Bodhisattvas twain. In the Northern Buddhist symbology, Amitabha's, or boundless space, Parabrahm, is said to have in his paradise 2 bodhisattvas, Quan Shi Yin and Tashishi, who ever radiate light over the 3 worlds where they lived, including our own, in order to help with his light of knowledge in the instruction of yogis who will, in their turn save men, their exalted position in Amitabha's realm is due to the deeds of mercy performed by the two as such yogis when on earth, says the allegory. And then Bodhisattvas upon the span of the three worlds, and these three worlds are the three planes of being, the terrestrial, astral, and spiritual. What we call the lower three worlds are the physical, astral, and mental. Know that the stream of superhuman knowledge and deva wisdom thou hast won must, from thyself, the channel of Alaya, be poured forth into another bed. Know, O nailer, thou of the secret path, its pure fresh waters must be used to sweeter make the ocean's bitter waves, that mighty sea of sorrow formed of tears of men. Alas, when once thou hast become like the fixed star in the highest heaven, that bright celestial orb must shine from out of spiritual depths for all, save for itself, give light to all, but take from none. Alas, when once thou hast become like the pure snow in the mountain vales, cold and unfeeling to the touch, warm and protective to the seed that sleep deep beneath its bosom, 'tis now that snow which must receive the biting frost, the northern blast, thus shielding from their sharp and cruel tooth the earth that holds the promised harvest, the harvest that will feed the hungry. Self-doomed to live through future kalpas, and we call that cycles of ages, unthanked and unperceived by man, wedged as a stone with countless other stones which form the guardian wall. The guardian wall, or wall of protection, is taught that the accumulated efforts of long generations of yogis, saints, and adepts, especially from the Nirmanakayas, have created, so to say, a wall of protection around mankind, which wall shields mankind invisibly from still worse evils. Such is thy future if the seventh gate thou passes, built by the hands of many masters of compassion, raised by their tortures, by their blood cemented. It shields mankind, since man is man, protecting it from further and far greater misery and sorrow. Withal, man sees it not, will not perceive it, nor will he heed the word of wisdom, for he knows it not. But thou hast heard it, thou knowest all, O thou of eager, guileless soul. All thou must choose, then hearken yet again. On Solan's path, O Shrodapati, thou art secure. On the marga, or on the path, where naught but darkness meets the weary pilgrim, where torn by thorns, the hands drip blood, the feet are cut by sharp, unyielding flints, and Mars wields his strongest arms, there lies a great reward immediately beyond. Calm and unmoved, the pilgrim glideth up the stream that to nirvana leads. He knoweth that the more his feet will bleed, the whiter will himself be washed. He knoweth well that after 7 short and fleeting births, nirvana will be his. Such is the dhyana path, the haven of the yogi, the blessed goal of Shrodapatis crave. Not so when he hath crossed and won the Arhata path. And that's from, not when he crossed the Arhat path. There, let's say, klisa is the love of pleasure or of worldly enjoyment, evil or good, is destroyed forever. Tanha, let's see, the will to live, that which causes rebirth, that those roots are torn out. But stay, O disciple, yet one word. Canst thou destroy divine compassion? Compassion is no attribute. It is the law of laws, eternal harmony, Alaya's self, a shoreless universal essence, the light of everlasting right and fitness of all things, the law of eternal love. And this is why they're called the masters of compassion at a certain point. Right? So the more thou dost become at one with it, thy being melted in its being, the more thy soul unites with that which is, the more thou wilt become compassion absolute. And this compassion must not be regarded in the same light as God, the divine love of the theist. Compassion stands here as an abstract, impersonal law whose nature, being absolute harmony, is thrown into confusion by discord, suffering, and sin. Whose nature, being absolute harmony, is thrown into confusion by discord, suffering, and sin. The more thou dost become at one with it, thy being melted in its being, the more thy soul unites with that which is, the more thou wilt become compassion absolute. Such is the Arya path, path of the Buddhas of perfection, with all what mean the sacred scrolls which make thee say, Om, I believe it is not all the arhats that get of the nirvanic path the sweet fruition. Om, I believe that the nirvana dharma is entered not by all the Buddhas. In this, in the Northern Buddhist phraseology, all the great arhats, adepts, and saints are called Buddhas. Yea, on the Arya path, thou art no more Shrutapati, thou art a bodhisattva. And a bodhisattva is, in the hierarchy, less than a perfect Buddha. In the exoteric parlance, these two are very much confused, yet the innate and right popular perception, owing to that self-sacrifice, has placed a bodhisattva higher in its reverence than a Buddha. The stream is crossed. 'Tis true thou hast a right to Dharmakaya vesture, but Sambhogakaya is greater than a Nirvani, and greater still is a Nirmanakaya, the Buddha of compassion. And this same popular reverence calls Buddhas of compassion those bodhisattvas who, having reached the rank of arhat, or having completed the fourth or seventh path, refuse to pass into the nirvanic state, or don't don the Dharmakaya robe and cross to the other shore, as it would then become beyond their power to assist men, even so little as karma permits. They prefer to remain invisibly, in spirit so to speak, in the world, and contribute toward man's salvation by influencing them to follow the good law, i.e. lead them on the path of righteousness. It is part of the exoteric Northern Buddhism to honor all such great characters as saints, and to offer even prayers to them, as the Greeks and Catholics do to their saints and patrons. On the other hand, the esoteric teachings countenance no such thing. There is a great difference between the two teachings. The exoteric layman hardly knows the real meaning of the word Nirmanakaya, hence the confusion and inadequate explanations of the Orientalists. For example, Schlagenweit believes that the Nirmanakaya body means the physical form assumed by the Buddhas when they incarnate on earth, the least sublime of their earthly encumbrances. And Vide Buddhist in Tibet, and he proceeds to give an entirely false view on the subject. The real teaching is, however, this: the three Buddhic bodies, or forms, are styled Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, Dharmanakaya. The first is the ethereal form, which one would assume when leaving his physical, he would appear in his astral body, having in addition all the knowledge of an adept. The bodhisattva develops in himself as he proceeds on the path. Having reached the goal and refused its fruition, he remains on earth as an adept, and when he dies, instead of going to nirvana, he remains in that glorious body he has woven for himself, invisible to uninitiated mankind, to watch over and protect it. Sambhogakaya is the same, but with the additional luster of 3 perfections, one of which is entirely obliteration of all earthly concerns. The Dharmakaya body is that of a complete Buddha, i.e. no body at all, but an ideal breath, consciousness merged in the universal consciousness, or soul devoid of every attribute. Once a Dharmakaya, an adept, or Buddha leaves behind every possible relation with or thought for this earth. Thus, to be enabled to help humanity, an adept who has won the right to nirvana renounces the Dharmakaya body, in mystic parlance, keeps of the Sambhogakaya only the great and complete knowledge, and remains in his Nirmanakaya body. The esoteric schools teach that Gautama Buddha, with several of his arhats, is such a Nirmanakaya, higher than whom, on account of the great renunciation and sacrifice to mankind, there is none known. So that is a deep study, and this is, I'm going to say referenced in the Ageless Wisdom and discussed by Master DK and Alice Bailey, where we discuss Amaya Varupa and building the body of light, and the avatar, building your body. You just have to read it and study these things, and then when we get there, we'll know. Some very interesting stuff there. Now blend thy head and listen well, O Bodhisattva. Compassion speaks and saith, can there be bliss when all that lives must suffer? Shall thou be saved and hear the whole world cry? Now thou hast heard that which was said, thou shalt attain the 7th step and cross the gate of final knowledge, but only to wed woe. If thou wouldst be Tathagata, follow upon thy predecessor's steps, remain unselfish till the endless end. Thou art enlightened, choose thy way. Behold, the mellow light that floods the eastern sky. In signs of praise, both heaven and earth unite, and from the fourfold manifested powers a chant of love ariseth, both from the flaming fire and flowing water, and from sweet-smelling earth and rushing wind. Hark, from the deep unfathomable vortex of that golden light, in which the victor bathes all nature's wordless voice, in 1,000 tones arises to proclaim, joy unto ye, O men of Mayalba. And this is our earth, pertinently called hell, and the greatest of all hells by the esoteric school. The esoteric doctrine knows of no hell or place of punishment other than on a man-bearing planet or earth. Avice is a state and not a locality. So this is a locality, not a state. But big difference. That's something to be contemplated there, honestly. that's something I would have to take some time. And so joy unto ye, O men of Miawa of earth. A pilgrim hath returned back from the other shore. A new Arhan is born. And this meaning that a new and additional savior of mankind is born, who will lead men to final nirvana after the end of the life cycle. A new Arhan is born, peace to all beings. This is one of the variations of the formula that invariably follows every treatise, invocation, or instruction. Peace to all beings, blessings on all that lives. Oh, it's always nice to finish these books. You can definitely see the initiations in this, discipleship not discipleship in New Age, but brazen initiations and a treatise on white magic are, hugely important books for us. Also, we could say Initiation Human and Solar would help these understandings. And they came after this. So we have the details more or less now. And we have the formulas, we say, given in the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East as per Carla, who's our mentor. So all very interesting, just really amazing stuff. And some, said in so many different ways, and knowing that, this is across the board, very similar, regardless of what anybody had thought before. It's essentially, it's proven out that the path is one, and that's been known. And if it wasn't known, it makes perfect sense now, especially that we have access to all this information. So all that came together, and we're moving into the Aquarian age, and we're looking for those who will inaugurate and get it started. So it's so interesting. But okay, we'll leave it there, and that's the end of The Voice of the Silence, and the plan is to get into a new book here very soon. Okay, have a good one.